Database architecture means when we are arranging the data in a proper way, we should follow some architecture. The relation model concept, on which criteria relation will be built from one table to the other table, that we are going to discuss. Why do we need operation? To fetch any data from the database or from the table, we need operation. Hello everyone, myself Indu J, faculty in the Computer Science Department, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. Today we are going to discuss the introduction about database management system. This is a third semester B.Ca syllabus. First and foremost thing, you have to understand why the database management is important. That's why they have included that in your syllabus. Nowadays, whatever you do, everything is information. It may be the personal information, what you browse in the computer, what you search in your mobile, everything is an information. Information is what? The collected, formatted data is called as information. Without data, we cannot do anything. That's why managing a data is very crucial and very important thing. So that's why we have to study this database management system. Okay, hope all of you clear why we have to study this particular subject. Data is a crucial and very important part of today's life. So converting this data in the form of information, then information in the form of knowledge, that can happen when we manage the data in a proper way. That's why we are studying the database management system. So let's see what we are going to discuss in today's session. So this is the agenda of today's session. First, we are going to discuss about the syllabus. What all you have in your syllabus to study about the database management system. Then what would be the learning outcome? After studying this particular syllabus which is prescribed for you, what would you are carrying it out? Means what you are taking out of studying this syllabus. That is a learning outcome of this particular subject, and then how many units you have for your syllabus, then what is the internal marks distribution and what is the external marks distribution. That all we are going to discuss in today's session. So next, moving, what we have is syllabus. In a syllabus, you will be having only 3 units. The 3 units will be covering database architecture, relational data model and data normalization. Database architecture means when we are arranging a data in a proper way, we should follow some architecture. That what are the types of architecture we have in the database, what all the components or the objects we have in the architecture, that we are going to study in database architecture. So when we are saying it's a data is related to one and another, or information is related to one information with the other information. So there is a relation between each data or each entity, we can say. So that is, we are giving with the relational data model. Data we are studying with respect of relations, that is called as relational data model. Then we have a data normalization. What do you mean by normalization? Just now I have told you, data, simply putting a data doesn't get you anything. Data has to be put in proper format. So putting that data in the proper format gives you some information. So that putting in proper format is called as data normalization. How we are doing that? We are doing that by reducing the redundant data or replicated data. We are managing the data by deleting the replications. That all we are going to study in the third module or third unit, that is data normalization. Next, we have learning outcome. What are the learning outcomes? What you get out of this subject is that at the end of this course, students will be able to able to explain the various database concepts and the need of database system. Why do we need database system and what are the various concept of database system? You will get the clarity regarding that. And then identify and define the database object, enforce integrity constraints on the database, using database management system. Integrity constraints means simply we cannot arrange the data. There are some rules and restrictions how we have to arrange the data. So for example, if you are coming to the school or coming to the college, you should have some rules and restrictions, how you have to behave in the classroom, how you should come to the classroom. So being a student, how you should be, and being a single individual, how it would be. That is a different, that is a constraints that we are putting when we are arranging the data. So that is the constraint what we are looking into. And what all the objects that are involved in managing that data. Next, what we learn is demonstrate the data module and schema in RDBMS. RDBMS stands for Relational Data. Database. Okay, RDBMS stands for Relational Database. We are demonstrating data modules and schema. What do you mean by data modules? Data module is a structural representation and schema is a table representation that we'll discuss in further coming sessions. Identify the entities and the relationships and draw the ER diagram for a given real world problem. Means once they have given any real world problem and asked you to develop one database for that, you should be able to develop after studying this particular subject. Then convert the ER diagram into the database schema. Just now I told you what is schema. Schema is a table representation. ER diagram is a diagrammatic representation, pictorial representation. So converting pictorial representation into the table form, we can convert using the normalization. Then formulate the queries in the relational algebra structured query language. Means what? Once you have created the database, you have to fetch some information from the database. How we are doing that fetching the information? By using the querying languages. So the standard querying languages what has been used to fetch any information from the database is SQL, that is standard query language. We are going to discuss what all the keywords we have to fetch the data, and then explain the transaction processing and concurrence control technique. What you mean by concurrency control technique means a single person is not fetching a data at particular instant or particular moment. Many people are fetching the data from the database. So concurrency means that at the particular time fetching the same information by different users. That is a concurrent operation. How the database is going to manage that concurrent operation? That is concurrency control and transaction processing. So these all things you are going to understand after studying this particular subject. Next what we have, we'll discuss detail the unit 1, that is data architecture. What we are going to study in the unit 1 is database architecture. Introduction to database system application, characteristics and purpose of database approach. What is the purpose of database approach? To manage the data. Also, hope all of you clear with that. Purpose of database management system is to manage the data so that everyone can access those data for their information. Then what are the characteristics of database management system? How database is characterized? What all characteristics we can find in that particular database? That we are going to discuss in the database architecture. Then data module. There are different type of modules when we are arranging the data. We can arrange either of their modules. So in that what data modules and database schema. Different modules and different schema are there to arrange the data in different forms. In database architecture, we have a 3-tier architecture. In schema, we have a 3 schema architecture, like that we have. And then data independent. Though data is related from one table to the other table, still that is independent of each other. That is, we are going to discuss in the data independentness and database languages. So just now I told you, querying, we are fetch the information from querying using some languages. Which languages we are using, that we discuss in database languages. Then the classification of database, based on which criteria database management system has been classified into different types, that we are going to discuss. Here in the first unit, database architecture has been classified in two parts. One is introduction and one is ER model entity. Combining two chapters, they have made one unit. Next, moving on to the ER module entity. Entity means ER is nothing but entity relationship model. What do you mean by ER? Entity relationship model. So, how we are providing the relationship between the entities, that we are going to discuss here. Entity relationship modeling and the concept. What is the entity? What is entity type? What is entity type? Entity set? What is attribute? And type of attribute we are going to discuss. Attribute is nothing but the property of any object is considered as an attribute. Entity is any individual object is considered as an entity in database. Relationship between the entities. How we are providing the relationship between entities, more than one object, that we are going to discuss. Relationship type, how many types of relationship we can provide. Then the role and structure of constraint. When we are providing or when we are giving the relationship from one entity or to other entity, we should follow some rules. There should be some constraints or there should be some restrictions. What all those restrictions we have when we are relating one table to the other table, that's we are going to discuss in roles and constraints. Degree and cardinality of relationship. How much it is dependent or how much it is related to the particular table or particular entity, that is nothing but cardinality ratio, that we are going to discuss here. This is all about only the first unit. In the next unit, we are going to discuss the relational data module. What do you mean by relational data module? In the previous unit, we will study in the ER module. ER module means entity relation module. How we are providing the relation from one entity to the other entity. That is entity relation model. Here we are going to study about the relational model. How the relation can be provided. The relation model concept, on which criteria relation will be built from one table to the other table, that we are going to discuss. Characteristics of relations. In relational model, what is the constraint? In constraint, again we have two types, domain constraint and the key constraint. In key constraint, again we have a primary key and foreign key constraint. Okay, how we are relating the data? Using the primary key. Primary key of the one table should be related to the primary key of the other table. Then only we can build the relationship between two tables. That is what we are studying in this particular chapter. Then relational algebra. Algebra means what? Any mathematical operation, maybe unary operation, binary operation. Those operation comes under algebra. How we are providing the operation between two tables, that gives the relational operation. Why do we need operation? To fetch any data from the database or from the table, we need operation. So simply we cannot fetch. So some operation has to occur on that particular data. So then we can fetch the data. So how we are fetching? What all the algebraic concepts using which we are fetching the data, that what we are discussing in the relational algebra. So in relational algebra operations, we have a select, project, union, intersection, cardinality. These are all some of the operations that we are going to discuss here. Main importantly, we are going to discuss about the join operation. Join means combining two table 1, that is table 1 and table 2, combining these two tables and forming the new table, that is a join operation. We are going to discuss how we can join two different table as in a single table. That we are going to discuss here. Aggregation function, when we are joining to sum function, multiplication, division, all these are called as aggregation functions. These functions, how we can use it in the relational model, that's we are going to discuss. So this is all about your unit 2. In unit 3, what we are going to discuss about data normalization. Normalization means eliminating the anomalies. Now you ask, what is anomaly? Anomaly is a redundant data. Redundant means repeated data. As we are managing a very big database, data can be stored repeatedly in the different tables, or in the same tables, same data can be stored. What happens if that is the case? The memory of the database will be keep growing, so that we fall less in the memory. And when we are fetching the data, instead of giving one particular specific information, it will give redundant information, more than one information, or we can say the replicated information we are getting, which is not a proper management of database. If we want to manage database properly, we have to go for normalization. What you meant by normalization? Removing the anomalies from the database. That is called as normalization. How we can achieve this normalization? We can achieve the normalization by different normal forms. We are going to study the different normal form, that is first normal form, second normal form, third normal form, and Bayer's code normal form. These are some different normalization techniques that we use to apply on the database, so that we can reduce the anomalies of the database. Okay, then after doing the normalization, we are processing the query. We are not simply processing the query in the random database. After normalization only, we are asking some queries. Queries means what? Questioning. Why you have to question the database? To get the information. Whichever the question you post to the database, it will give you the answer. So for example, I want to select particular information or particular student information from the college database. What do I say? I need student information. Means all student information can come to me? No. That is querying is what? I need the student information that belongs to this particular class, this particular year, and which is the student ID. If I give like that, I can fetch only one student data which I required. Clear? So that is what querying process. How to question a database, how to get the proper information from the database. That what we are dealing with, querying process and transaction management. Next, what we are studying about, single user multi-user system. A huge database cannot be used by the single users. A small database can be used by the single user, that is built for their own purpose. A large database, you can take an example of college database, that cannot be accessed or managed by the single person. We need more than one person to manage that particular college database. So how we are going to provide that single user or multi-user system to fetch the data? And transactions, read write operation, how we can read the data onto the database, and how we can write the data from the database. Reading means reading something onto the database, means giving some more extra information apart from what you have created, and writing means fetching the same information back, that is called as writing. Okay, needs a concurrency control. Concurrency control means, just I have told you what you meant by concurrency. Doing the same operation by multiple user at the same instant of the time is called as concurrency control. Once you have done with the concurrency control, why we have to control that concurrency? The same data has to be go to the user 1, and same data has to go to the user 2, and same data has to go to user n also. So data should be same, and multiple users. How we are managing that? By using the concurrency control technique. And then what we have is dirty read. What you mean dirty read problem? Dirty read means some data has been manipulated, but you are fetching the old data, or you want to fetch the old data which is been manipulated by some other. So the data which is original data and data that is present right now, there is no match between them. So that is called as a dirty read. Okay, we'll discuss in detail when we are dealing with the unit 3. And then type of failure. When we are managing such huge data, obviously there should be some failures. We cannot manage without some failure. We learn from our mistake and we correct those mistakes. Similarly, failures are there in the database system, and what type of failures are there. Once we know what is the reason for the failure, we can find the solution for that failures. So that is the type of failures we are going to study. And transaction state, describable properties of database, that we call it as acid property of transaction. That is which is most important. Most of the time they'll ask in the final exams, what is the property or acid property of the transaction? That is we are going to discuss in the unit 3. So far, hope all of you clear what we are discussing unit 1, in unit 2 and in unit 3. Now let's move on how the marks distribution is done. So internal marks is for your IA. Internal 2 IAs will be conducted. Your internal marks is total marks is for 30 marks. In that, internal 1 you will be having for unit 1 will be having first internal. You will be having 30 marks of 10 marks of each question you're supposed to answer. And then for the internal 2 will be having unit 2 and unit 3, both for the internal 2. From each unit you will be getting 15 marks each. Okay, 15 marks from unit 2, 15 marks from unit 3. That's how at the average we are taking the average of 2 internal as your final internal marks. Then marks distribution of final exam, that is SE, semester end exam. We are categorize the question paper in 2 parts, part A and part B. Total marks will be for 60 marks. Part A you will be having for 40 marks. Question from all 3 modules. You will be having the options also, either that or this. One complete module has to be attended. And in part B, combining 3 modules, 5 marks each, you will be having 15 marks questions. In part B, each question carries 5 marks. And this is about your semester end examination marks distribution. So some of the books you can refer for this particular subject, that is database management system. You may consider who want to develop the career in the database management system, this could be the Bible for them. That is the fundamentals of database system from Navte. They have different edition from edition 3 to 7. Now 9th edition has been also released. But for your syllabus, if you refer 7th edition, it's more than enough for you. What is that? Fundamentals of database system by Navte. And apart from that, you can also use an introduction to database system by Bipin Desai and introduction to database system by Pearson publishers. That also you can refer. Thank you.